I said I would provide every tool that you need, and then I definitely meant it. And so here's what we're going to go through today is what kind of tools are going to be there and what do you use them for. So basically also a little bit of accessories also come with it. So let's go and start talking about what you get. So one of the things that you get is a digital multimeter. And a digital multimeter, it's for adjusting the voltage mainly on your power supply, but also if you ever need to, you can actually find the right pins on your stepper motor drivers. You can actually find a little bit on there to try and adjust it so that you set things correctly. You can use it for all sorts of extra stuff around the house, for other things that you need to. It's got ways to test transistors, ways to test AC power and all that. Probably most importantly is a digital calipers come with it. And what you need digital calipers for is to measure your filament diameter. Then also your parts. You can't calibrate a printer correctly unless you actually have a clue what size your parts are or what size your filament diameter is. And so for instance, this kind of filament diameter, you would want to actually use the calipers to measure the filament diameter. With the digital calipers that you get, they actually have a nice little reading on there that tells you how much, how big the distance is. It goes all the way up to a little bit past 6 inches or a little bit past 150 millimeters, which is really nice because you're going to actually use the digital calipers not only for measuring your filament and measuring like calibration cubes for the right size, where you actually, it's got a little thumb screw on here so that you get it sized right, but you're actually also going to use it for setting your printer up because the distance between the two Vision side panels, you will find the exact right thing depending on the model that you buy, and you lock the set screw in, and that will actually give you your measuring device for how big or how wide between the panels that you set things. So it's kind of nice, very, very useful, all-purpose kind of tool. And so you can measure things on the inside diameters. For instance, our bottle here measures a little over 30 millimeters. That's why they call this I guess a 30 or 32 millimeter opening, or 30 millimeter opening. And then here this is supposedly 3 millimeter diameter filament. This is PLA. The 3 millimeter diameter filament, should it come in at 3 millimeters? No, it never does. This is 2.79 millimeters. If you look at that. 2.79, 2.77, depending on the way that you actually turn it, it could go 2.82. That's one of the very important things that you're going to put into your slicing program, whether it's KISS Slicer or, I use SFACT with Skyneforce and Pronterface a lot, but I also use, for the production files, I switched over and started using Slicer. I like Slicer because it's very fast and it's very clean. It gets a couple things wrong from time to time, so you have to actually edit some of the stuff, but so does SFACT or Skyneforge. So pretty much any slicing software that you use will actually use that as a useful tool for finding out what the diameter. This is supposed to be 1.75 millimeters, so does it come in at 1.75? Pretty close. 1.72 to 1.73 is what you get, and so that's pretty good. The problem is, if you order it through other sources, it could be 1.9 millimeters, or it could be as little as like 1.6 millimeters. And so the problem with 3 millimeter filament is that it is never 3 millimeters. I've never seen anything that ever came in at 3. I've seen it anywhere from 2.6 all the way up to 3.2. Anything past 3.05 or 3.1, you're going to start jamming up your extrusion. You don't want to guess at what your filament diameter is, so for that reason, digital calipers. And then once you start your calibration cubes or calibration, different things, you definitely want to measure what they are, and then you can go back and reset what it is. And one of the most important calibration things you use, I like to start off with just a simple little 10 millimeter by 10 millimeter little cube. It's very, very small. It's very quick to print. Or the other one I start off with is not a cube, but it's actually a 40 millimeter by 40 millimeter, which is about this wide. 40 millimeter by 40 millimeter by 10 millimeter tall object. And the reason is that helps you get your initial dial in of the machine, and you're not waiting, you know, a long time to print a full 40 millimeter calibration cube. So anyway, if you go ahead, digital calipers, that's really, really important. And then we've got a couple screwdrivers that come with it. One, for the power supply, you're going to need a Phillips screwdriver. I think that's the only place that I have that you actually really need that. You're going to use, also, for the power supply, connector going to the computer board. You're going to use a small little flathead screwdriver. So it's very small, but it's also very handy because there's no other tool that will actually get in there. And then for your trim pot, if you ever need to adjust it, which you probably won't because I'll probably send them out pre-adjusted, this is actually a ceramic screwdriver, so it's non-conducting, and that's really important because if you actually, on those small surface mount boards, if you hit the wrong place with a metallic conducting screwdriver, you done wasted some money. So anyway, and then you'll get a couple wrenches, an adjustable wrench. This is pretty much all purpose for anything from like your 3 millimeter nuts all the way up to ½ inch or 13 millimeter. And then you also get a ½ inch, which also doubles a 13 millimeter. It's very tight on 13 millimeter combination wrench. So between these two traditional kind of wrenches, they work very well for every single nut that's on there. So, and then also you will end up getting Allen wrenches, and there's 3 little Allen wrenches that come with it. First you'll get a 3 millimeter Allen wrench, which is for your mounting your extruder. Then the most important one is the 2.5 millimeter, which is the middle size one, and that's for most of the 3 millimeter screws. So for a 3 millimeter screw, you use a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. That's for the socket head cap screws, and there's a lot of them in the kit. And then the last one is a really, really small 1.5 millimeter. And what you use this for is actually the gold timing pulleys that are on the X and the Y axis. And I think that's the only place in all of the kit that you actually need to use those. So pretty much with that, that's all the tools themselves that you need for the kit. Actually, there's one other tool that you will get, and I haven't decided yet whether it's going to be hemostats or it's probably just going to be the needle nose pliers, because they have wire cutters on them and needle nose pliers. The needle nose pliers are really nice to hold small little nuts until you're ready to really crank them down and tighten them up, but it's also good for being able to pull up parts off of the glass plate when you're using them. So that's pretty much all of the tools that we'll be using that come with the kit. And so I think this is actually the only 3D printer kit that actually comes with a multimeter, and it's the only 3D printer kit that actually comes with calipers. I have no idea why, but they're very, very, very useful. So now let's start on the accessories that come with the kit. These are things that you actually need if you're going to get good prints, and then some of them you might not need them, but they're kind of handy. So first off, let's start off with the way to hook up the printer. It's a USB cable. This is a standard USB cable, and so that's actually what powers from the computer board that is actually on the printer to your regular computer to be able to upload or download software if you want to run it off the SD card, or if you want to run it straight from the computer. And I do that all the time because I'm always fiddling with different things to make better prints, and it really, really pays off. Actually, one of the tools that I forgot about that's extremely important, but you got to be very, very careful, is a razor. This is a straight blade razor on here, and to actually take it apart, you actually open it up and flip it, and it's actually backwards. So if you're using this around children, don't let the children have it. There's a little alignment notch in there, and if you get it just right, then it lines up pretty good, and then you snap it in place, and you've got an extremely sharp razor surface there. The problem with it is it's an extremely sharp razor surface. The good news is that for the glass surface plates that we like to use, or that I really, really love to use for 3D printing, the very best way to get things removed is to be able to scour it off with this. It doesn't hurt the glass plate at all. And in fact, I not only use it for that, but I also use it for Kapton tape or PET. If I'm changing it out and it's got a little tear or something, I'll scrape this off the Kapton tape or PET tape with the razor. But I also use this on top of the PET tape or Kapton tape, and you very, very gently, when you do it, you can lift things up sometimes. You can't lift big parts up, but things like your outline that you're actually going to be printing, you use that. So there's a razor blade in this kit. Please don't let little children have it. So, and then this, you get 2 mirrored surface plates. So the mirrored surface plates, the reason I use it is because it's glass and it's extremely flat. And that's very, very important. But the other thing is that on the back side of the mirrored surface plate, it's actually got a metal that's in there that's what actually is the metal that allows you to see reflections and stuff. But the really, really great use of it is that it spreads the heat across the full surface of the mirror, and it gives you the flatness and the smoothness of glass, but it gives you the heat transfer of metal. So I really like that. A lot of people, you'll see on the RepRap channels or so, you talk about borosilicate glass, which is Pyrex is the trade name if you buy it from, I think, DuPont. It's not as flat as mirrors are, or traditional, plate glass. It is much tougher, so it's harder to crack it. But honestly, I have never cracked a mirror yet, so yay, I saved myself 7 years of bad luck or whatever. Next up, the tape that we use. This is Kapton tape, and what you see this, it's a very high heat tape. You see it a lot used in the electrical industry. If you look on one of the other videos, I'll show you how to actually apply Kapton tape to the mirror. But the other thing, and the only reason you really need it to apply it to the mirror is if you're going to use ABS plastic. If you're only going to use a printer for PLA plastic, you don't need this at all. PLA prints beautifully on either heated straight mirror plate, or if you use blue tape. This is what's called blue tape, and I actually got Scotch brand name blue tape, so this is the best of the best, and it works absolutely exceptional for PLA. If you don't want to use your heated bed, like you're going, you could actually power the printer straight from your power supply of your automobile, so long as you don't use the heated bed. Normally those power outlets on the cars are only good for maybe around 12 amps, 10 to 12 amps. If you're lucky, you've got one that's like 15 or 20 amps. If you have 20 amps available, I might actually sell a connector that would allow you to power your full heat bed and everything straight from your automobile power outlet. So, but blue tape is really good. You just tape a bunch of lines across it so that you fully put it on the mirrored plate, and you're good to go for PLA. The bad news is that if you don't use blue tape if you use the heated bed heated, but you do use PLA cold, will print beautifully on this. We'll show you how to set it up right and the right layer heights for it. But that tape is really, really well used throughout the RepRap industry for people who exclusively print with PLA. And then next up, I'm giving you a blank spool. Basically, because if you use the 1 pound samples that I'm giving you, or the 1 pound different plastic that you purchase with each of your kits, spools work better than anything if you want to re-spool it onto there. Okay, if you don't want to re-spool it, you got to spool anyway. If you're going to use ABS, actually, if you're going to clean the mirrored plate, this bottle actually is actually just a generic Windex. I kind of found out through trial and error the best stuff that actually works is generic glass cleaner. This is actually, so long as it has the ammonia in it, then the generic glass cleaner works the best. A little bit of this is what I'm going to put in there. I don't know yet whether I'm going to actually send it out with these lovely, they call this a brown, Boston round bottle. But I like it around the shop because the blue Windex with the brown tint to this actually makes it look like black black liquid. So people don't know what it is, but it kind of looks kind of more scientific or whatever. Truth is, it's just simple window cleaner. It's got an atomizer and it's got a cap that goes on there. You can actually pull it off to actually clean the glass. I don't clean the glass very often myself because I never actually put my fingers on the glass. That's a really good practice to get into. If you're one to like to, touch the glass all the time, you're going to need a, big bottle of Windex. If you don't, I don't even clean the glass maybe once a week. But then again, it's just a matter of how many times that you're going to actually touch it. And if you accidentally touch it, it's better to clean it with this. Same way with the PET or Kapton tape that goes with this. You never use Windex with blue tape though. I mean, it's painter's tape. A little bit of finger oil and stuff won't hurt a little bit, but you try not to touch the build surface plate if you can. And the last thing is a bottle. This is a polyethylene bottle. Comes with polyethylene cap and a polyethylene foam thing. And this is if you want to use what they call ABS juice. And what ABS juice is it is acetone, or fingernail polish remover is what usually is acetone, mixed with a little bit of ABS filament in there. And the reason they do it is that although I've seen people apply it directly to the glass, I don't do it. It doesn't stick as well. If you apply it to Kapton tape that's already stuck to the glass, or PET tape, if you buy PET tape, then it makes your prints stick extremely good for ABS. You don't use it for PLA. PLA prints as perfectly as possible on just heated glass around 40 to 60 degrees Celsius. Because of the mirror plates that I use, I print at only 40 degrees Celsius is my heated plate, which is much colder than you need if you print with borosilicate glass. You have to actually heat it up because I don't know whether it's the heat transfer's worse or the mirrors, because they're smoother, that it's better transfer, but they stick extremely well at 40 degrees Celsius. 40 to 45 is all I ever heated at. And then the last little thing is some stickers. If you're going to use acetone and make ABS juice, definitely put the poison stickers on there. It gives you a poison control line to help. And rather than actually put the skull and crossbones, which was what was popular when I was small, kids think pirates are cool these days. I blame Disney and Pirates of the Caribbean, but pirates are cool, and so if you put those on there, then they might think that's some sort of pirate juice or something. We don't take any chances around our place, so put it on there and be safe. So that pretty much sums up all of this. Oh, actually one other thing. This is just a small amount of oil, and what it is it's actually a I think a Loctite or a liquid wrench product, but all this is it's kind of like 3-in-1 household oil. It's a little bit better than that, and it's just a little dropper that you unscrew it, and when you unscrew it, you've got a little dropper there, and you tilt it over and get rid of the cap or the ring around it, and that actually, you'll put a little bit of that on your smooth rods that go side to side or front to back or up and down, and you put a little bit from time to time on the threaded rods that are there. Basically, it's the threaded rods only for the Z-axis. You don't want to put it on any of the other threaded rods that make up the machine. But if you put a little bit of this on there, you put it on the top and the bottom of it, and then you cycle it a couple times. It works in a little bit, and that way your machine will last a lot longer. A little bit of maintenance, and your machine lasts a long time. When your machine lasts a long time, you can print a lot, and you can have a whole lot more fun. So anyway, that pretty much sums up all the tools that you'll be getting, and then all the accessories that we're going to throw into the kit. The one thing is, with the spool, some of the international orders, I never promised it, and I never promised, any of the bottles or anything, but the spool might actually take up a little bit too much space. If it knocks me up into an extra, higher price category to ship it, the next size up on a bunch of different countries is actually around $150. So I guarantee you that this spool is not worth an extra $150 worth of shipping. So if I can't fit it in there, and I hope I can, but if I can't fit it in there, it's not going to go. So other than that, everything else that you see is what you're going to get. And hey, use the tools after you build the kit. Use it for whatever you want to. One of the other things that I was going to tell you is that for the Phillips screwdriver, there's one of three types that you might get. You might actually get this type, which is a traditional Phillips screwdriver. Some kits actually will come up with a Phillips screwdriver that has a removable tip, and it has a little magnet thing that's in there, so that's kind of cool because it might be handy. So that might be luck of the draw on that. So, but this uses the standard 1/4 inch tips that are very, very popular with power screwdrivers. Or you might get a T-handled screwdriver. So the good news about this is that I think that's actually, no, it's not magnetic, but T-handle allows you to put a little bit more torque on things when you're twisting them. But it's one of those three types of screwdrivers.